I know I was dead for 15 minutes. The next moment of time, I'm in a valley. And oh my God, it's a rainbow wrapped in a valley. I've never seen anything so beautiful. I knew instantly, this is home. I must have died. How could I be here if I didn't die? And a voice spoke to me telepathically. Creig, you're right. You're dead. You died. Part of me did not want to come back, Lori. Part of me is fighting to stay right there and go exploring.
Still have questions? Well, join me live for Wake Up Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll answer your questions, and you might see a familiar face. Together, we're waking up the collective. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Creig Morris, who had a near-death experience when he was murdered during a home invasion. But today we're going to start with his out-of-body experience and work our way up. So Creig, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Lori, thanks for having me on your podcast. It's an honor to be here. It really is. And so
well, I love the technology because you are in South America and I'm here in the US, and I just think it's incredible that we can be continents away from each other and have a conversation like this today.
Yeah, in real time with no lag. Imagine that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Well, you had a really unusual out-of-body experience that I think it's probably best to start there because this does build into your near-death experience, which we'll get to next. But why don't you go ahead and share what happened in that car accident, and then in any way that makes sense for you?
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to do that rapidly because I know that when I was murdered in the home invasion, that's 4 years ago. I'll take a couple minutes and talk about the car incident. I was driving home one day on a road that I had driven 2,000 times every day for all year going home, and it's a state highway, but it's a mountain highway. You know, when you drive around the mountains, the curves. It's a 2-lane road. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, hot day, summertime, dry. Everything was safe as far as the road conditions. And I'm just driving along, and I'm driving a big car. We're talking 7,000 pound four-door sedan. Back when gas was 80 cents a gallon. Okay, I'm 69. I'll be 70 in October. All right. So I'm driving. I don't even have my seatbelt on. I do wear my seatbelt today, but there's not a day goes by I don't think about what happened on the Peaslee Canyon Highway. I've had people that watch a couple of the podcasts. I know that road. He's exactly that's. I know that road. So I'd gone around inside the mountain to a curve, and I was heading back out to the outside of the curve. And you know, at 60 miles an hour, you're covering 100 feet per second. Now, at the pinnacle of this curve, it's not a hairpin curve at all. It's a sweeping curve. But at 60 miles an hour, it only takes less than 1 second to go around that curve. So any cars coming the other direction, that's your blind spot. They're driving 50, 60 miles an hour too. So at the last possible second, I saw what I could not believe. I panicked. There was a young man, probably a teenage boy, on a mountain bike, a little plastic helmet, in the middle of my lane coming at me, pedaling his little heart out. I think he had a death wish. He should not have been on a highway like that. And as soon as I saw him, my heart just almost stopped. I knew that if I went to the right, I might miss him. But if I miss him going to the right, I'm going off the cliff. It's 300 feet to the river gorge. It's going to be ugly. I can see the tops of the pine trees looking over the crest of the shoulder of the road. So in less than 1 second, that's all I have. I jerked the steering wheel to the left. To this day, I don't know how I missed him. I do not know how I missed the bicyclist. But no sooner than my car had left my correct lane, the outside lane, and now I'm in the inside lane. And by the way, the mountain comes down to the shoulder of the road. There is no shoulder. So I can't go further to the left. There's no time to go to the right. My foot is on the gas. There was no time to brake because this happens in less than 1 second. At that moment, at that precise moment, the other car showed up. I could not tell, Lori, I could not look over the hood of my car and tell where the hood of my car stopped and the hood of the other car started. The cars were grill to grill. As I saw the car, I took my hands off the wheel, clasped them, and put them in my lap and just looked. because I wasn't going to do anything except there was going to be a big explosion and I'm going to die. And I accepted it. I just accepted it because there was nothing to do. I'm looking out my windshield into the windshield of the car that's we're colliding now. Okay. And I can see the man driving and he's pushing on his steering wheel doing this because he's bracing for impact. I could see in peripheral vision his wife sitting next to him and three small heads in the back seat. Family of five. Family of five, we're all going to die. At that moment, time stopped. If you're driving 60 miles an hour and you hit a brick wall, remember those commercials with the crash dummies? Well, that's what you're going to do, out the windshield. Okay. My car at 60 miles an hour, and he's got to be going at least 50, that's the speed limit. My car stopped, totally stopped. I was not thrown forward. In fact, when I jerked the steering wheel and went to the left, I should have been thrown to the right, because if there was room, the car would have rolled from just jerking the steering wheel as hard and as far to the left as I could to avoid the bicyclist. The car would have rolled, but the oncoming car was in front of me. So now the car stops and it literally does this. It moves. I'm sitting perpendicular with my hands in my lap. My foot's on the gas. The speedometer still says 60 miles an hour. The car moves straight 180 to the right, forward one car length, back to the left in my correct lane. The front tire, my right front tire and two rear tires were in the shoulder of the road when the car did this. And it sounded like gunfire under the car, which were rocks and gravel. Okay. I looked in the rearview mirror and there's a plume of smoke from the dirt 50 feet in the air. And my car kept going. And so there was no explosion. There was no accident. I don't know how to describe, I'm in a love bubble. I'll say that for now, but in a minute, I'll describe that more in detail. Some people say I jumped a timeline or whatever. If you were on the mountain looking down the hill and you saw the bicyclist who should not have been there, and you saw my car coming from the right and another car coming from the left, and all three, well, the bike and the two cars all met at the apex of this sweeping blind curve. I think if you blinked, you missed it in real time. But everything slowed so far down. It's like turning a VCR down to 1/10, 1/20th speed. And I'm not even panicked. I'm just sitting here casual, perpendicular. My car is now in the right-hand lane. It continues to drive. I'm not driving. My hands are in my lap. The steering wheel is moving. The car is going around curves, up and over the bend and down as the elevation drops to the valley floor, because I'm going down a mountain on the mountain highway here. And all kinds of thoughts are going through my mind. What just happened? Did I die? Was there an explosion? Did I die that fast? I didn't even hear the explosion. If I'm in heaven, why am I driving the 72 Ford? The used car that we have for a second car, and my wife drove the newer car. But I'm sitting there thinking, why is my car with me in heaven? Because this can't be real. This cannot be happening. But I was so happy. I almost felt like singing and laughing. I was so happy. I just couldn't believe it. So this goes on for 5 miles, this conversation I'm having with myself. And then I thought, well, I got to go pick up my son. That's where I was going, to my mother-in-law's house, to pick up my son, who was less than a year old. And so I reached up and I took the steering wheel physically for the first time since the event. Okay. As soon as I touched the steering wheel, I could feel it was like my feet were submerged in water, but it was electricity. It felt electric. And this electricity just started at my toes and went right straight up my calves, my thighs, past my waist. And when it passed my head, I could feel this electrical presence, this tingling I had all over me was gone. At that point, I was driving the car, and for the first time, I took my foot off the brake, and I let the car on its own inertia slow down. When it got so slow, almost stopped, I pulled off to the shoulder of the road, turned the car off, and sat there and cried for almost 45 minutes, thanking God for saving my life, because I don't know how I didn't kill the bicyclist and 6 other people in a head-on collision, because nobody would have walked away from that. And so maybe you got answers for that, Lori. I don't know.
I don't know if I have answers, but Creig, you know what I love about this? This happened 44 years ago, and the
Yes.
emotion of which you tell this account is like it could have happened to you yesterday. So I have a really big question for you. How did this change who Creig was 44 years
Well,
ago once you had this experience?
well, first of all, it was almost a month before I could share what happened with my wife at the time. Okay. I just I was dumbfounded. I was without words. You know, this is this is in 1983. This is 16 years before The Matrix. This is 17 years before The Truman Show. So I'm like on an island. I have nobody I can talk to about this, and they wouldn't believe me if they'd want to put me in a white coat and admit me to some clinic someplace. So I kept it to myself. But every day that I wake up, still to this day, it's a good day. I'm alive. I'm happy to be here, and we got things to do. We're trying to wake people up now. Now, I think that this event in 1983, I was 27 at the time, summer of 83. And I think that event prepared me for being murdered. I really do. Because um, I was, I had one foot in this world and one foot in the world right next to us, if I could say it that way. Three dimension, fourth dimension, spiritual realm, the other side. I was in both realms at the same time. And that's why I was just, the love that I felt in my car, I sit perpendicular. Well, the car did things that should have thrown me out the passenger through the windshield. And I just sit there calmly, like I am right now, and had this experience. So, yeah, it's like I think about it every day. That's why it sounds up close and personal, because it is. Okay, so now let's fast forward. Okay, this is 2022, and well, we're in 2026. But on Friday of this week, on Friday, on the 5/22/2022, okay, the 22nd of May, 4 years ago on Friday, I was visiting a friend. Imagine being a victim in a home invasion and you're visiting your friend. It's not even your house. Imagine that. So I was there because Morris, my friend, I was 66 at the time. He was almost 80, and he's very frail. We don't know if he's got an hour left or a year because he's not getting along very well. And so I've known the man for 10 years, and I ran into him at the market, and I said, "Hey, why don't I come and stay at the house for a while? Because to be honest, Morris, we don't know how much time you got left, and we could shoot the breeze and you know just kind of share old times and friendship and that sort of thing, if you wouldn't mind." And so I said, "No, come on over." So I ended up staying there for like 3 or 4 months. He's got a couple of horses. I'm helping groom the horses. I'm riding the horses. I'm cooking. I'm feeding the dogs. I'm just trying to help out. I'm sleeping on the couch, okay, just to be near my friend because he was a good friend. So one night on a Tuesday night, just like tonight's Tuesday, we are sitting in the living room having a hot cup of tea like we normally did at 8 to 9 o'clock at night, and everybody always went to sleep 8:30, 9 o'clock. No electricity. There's no electricity in this house. It's under construction. 8 windows, four got glass. No tiles on the floor. That's how Latins build a house, poco a poco, as money is available. And the man who owned the house was a friend of Morris's and let him stay in the second bedroom. And this guy that owns the house was never there. So it's just me and Morris visiting, having a cup of tea. And without the lights on, it's black. I mean, it's you can't see your hand in front of your face. It's that black because we're the closest neighbor's probably 100, 200 yards away, and it's dotted on the hillside. You know, this is a mountainous countryside. Okay, up the hill there's a dairy, and it's a dead end road. It's 300 yards to the asphalt, and we're in this whole house. So we're having a cup of tea, and the lights went out. The lights went out. The generator, gas powered generator, is outside on the side of the house. It's so loud, Lori, that you almost have to yell in the house because there's no muffler. It's just a generator. But that's how we had a refrigerator, a freezer, and lights in the house. The lights went out. And so I got my backpack and I had a little $2 flashlight. I turned the light on. We had two 12-foot batteries in the living room. So I could, with a flashlight, I could connect that to the lamp. Now we have the lights in the kitchen, dining area, and it's all one room, but it's just a little house. And so now we have light in the house. And Morris, my friend, thought, well, one of the dogs probably ran between the wall and the generator and disconnected a cable. Yeah, no problem. I'll go connect it. So I got the flashlight. I walk out the back, the back door, which was the kitchen, down an embankment around the side of the house because the generator is right in the middle of a long wall. And there's three cables. Each one is 100 feet long, one for lights, one for fridge, one for freezer. Now, I approached the generator, which is bigger than this, couple of coffee tables. It's a big motor. It's loud. So I'm shining the flashlight behind the generator. All right. And there's a concrete wall and a space of about 10 inches, and then the generator, and you could see the cables. Now, as soon as I look back there, I'm thinking the lights have been disconnected. No. All three cables are disconnected. All three are disconnected. But then I looked a little closer and I go, no, wait a minute. The three-pronged plugs are still plugged into the generator. Somebody cut those cables, all three, and the cables were laying on the ground, two orange and one yellow, and I'm going, oh, that's not right. Something's wrong. That's all I remember. That's all I remember. At that specific second, I'm looking at the back of a generator. I didn't even blink. In the next moment of time, I'm in a valley. I'm in a valley. And oh my God, it's a rainbow wrapped in a valley. I've never seen anything so beautiful. And the peace, the love, oh my God, I knew instantly, this is home. I must have died. How could I be here if I didn't die? And a voice spoke to me telepathically. I never saw this person. I think I know who this person was, but I'm not sure. You probably have an answer for me, Lord. But I thought, how could I be here in paradise? This has to be heaven. It's my own personal little paradise. How can I be here if I'm not dead? I must be dead. And a voice spoke to me, Creig, you're right. You're dead. You died. And I'm going, well, thank you for confirming that. And so I'm taking in my surroundings, and I'm just, you can't describe it. You cannot describe the feeling of acceptance, because when you have total, infinite, unconditional love everywhere, in and all around you at the same time, the only word I can really use to describe that is absolute total freedom. There's no constraints, there's no restrictions, there's no borders, no boundaries, nothing. You are absolutely free. And so I'm all of a sudden now I'm walking on grass, and then I realize, hey, I don't have any shoes on. I'm barefoot. Oh, this is kind of cool. So I sit down on the grass and I'm touching my feet, my legs. I was wearing, I think you would call this a tunic. If you watch an old movie with the Roman soldiers, where they had these robes on of sorts, and it was just above your knee. And then my shoulder, my arms were bare, but the material crossed over my shoulder like so, and was at a point. It was at a point. It reminded me of kind of a casual uniform, and it was the softest, silkiest cashmere, I can't describe it, material. And I'm really a curious type. I see this emblem on my chest. It's not a letter. It could have been a symbol, but it was beautiful, decorative, and it was a bronze color, and it kind of had a glow to it, literally a glow to it. And I couldn't tell where the edge of the emblem stopped and the material started. It was like fused all together. And that's when I looked, I pulled it up and looked to the side and everything. There's no seams, there's no stitches, there's no nothing, but I've never worn anything this comfortable. It was like I wasn't wearing clothes at all. But when I walked on that grass, it was as if I could feel the life force of the grass and every blade of grass coming up through my feet into my legs. I didn't, as I look back on it, because there was a period of weeks after this where I got some downloads, and I thought, I think I knew how many blades of grass I stepped on. I mean, I just knew everything, while I was there. So I stand back up, and I want to say this for your audience. Your personality, your consciousness, all your memories, when you go to the other side, you didn't leave that behind. You know everything that you knew here over there. But now I'm getting more information because it's the first time I've been where I'm at now. And so I looked at this tree. I'm in a valley. Even the rocks were beautiful, Lori. It was just incredible. The flowers, everything. On both sides of me, in the distance, hundreds of yards in either direction, there was the mountains came down, and I was on the valley floor. Okay, and I looked at this tree that was about 30, 40 feet from me, when I was sitting on the ground, I looked at this tree and I realized that what a beautiful tree. I've never seen color. The bark is beautiful, but I focused. I just like concentrated just for a half a second and focused on the trunk of the tree. I could see every single little molecules section of that bark. If an ant was crawling on it, I could have told you if he blinked. I had this unbelievable vision looking at this tree, and I could just describe. I could have drawn it as if I was looking at it under a microscope. Then my vision raised up, and I looked at the leaves. I looked at all of them at once, and then I focused on one, and I realized that wow, I've never seen a green like that before. It's just beautiful. But I could see every vein and every part of that leaf on the tree, which prompted me to look to the side of the tree in the distance because there's like a forest up on the sides of these mountains on both sides of the valley. And I looked at there's 1,000 trees. I could see them all at the same time, or I could pick out one tree, just one, and look and see the bark just as clear and precise at 500 yards away as I was at 30 feet. And I thought, now that's really cool. I can't even imagine that, in a realm where we're at right now, where we're literally bound by time, distance, and space, literally bound by that. Everything's slower than mud here. Okay, that's for sure. And we don't use 0.003 of the light spectrum. Well, when you cross over to the other side, there's no bound, there's no limits. You see everything. You got full light spectrum and all your senses. It's like high definition times a million. You just can't. I don't know how else to describe it. So I heard this water to my left, and so I looked, and it's about 100 yards away. I saw a river that come up from the top of the mountains behind me. It was like a stream, a mountain stream, and it looked to be pretty good size, but it's 100 yards away. And I thought, I got to go check that out. I got to go see that. And so I moved, but I moved rather quickly. It was a thought before I moved. But as soon as I started to move, I'd already had the thought, I'm going to go to the river. I was thinking, here's what I was thinking: water. There's got to be a calm spot on the river, on the creek, where I can look and see my reflection. I don't have a mirror. I want to see what my face looks. I don't know. So I guess I had this vain moment while I was in paradise, I guess. But as soon as I turned to go, I wasn't walking anymore. I just took off flying. And I was in the air for 40, 50 yards before I realized that, whoa, now that's new. And so I stopped in midair. I was about 20 feet above the ground, and my body just slowly descended, floated back down to where I was on the grass again, barefoot. And then at that point, I started, and also in the distance where I looked at those trees in the 500 yards away, in the far distance, it looked to be miles away. There was a huge body of water. I couldn't tell you if it was an ocean, a sea, or a big lake. But I thought, well, I'm going to have to check that out because water, there might be people there. There's nobody here, but there was somebody with me that I did not see. Okay. Now we're going to start having a conversation. Now remember, I don't know. I'm dead. I've confirmed that, but I don't know how I died. Being the curious guy that I am, I didn't ask that question, but in my heart, I started feeling a heaviness, a real heaviness. I was so sad. It's not like I was fighting back the tears. I was choked up with grief. I was just grieving inside because I thought, okay, I'm dead. I've confirmed that. I've got two stepkids. I'm the only dad they've known for over 20 years. They're 25 and 22. They're two of my closest friends. They're going to be devastated. They don't even know where I was. They just knew I was staying with a friend in Bongo. They don't know what the house or nothing. It might have been weeks before there was a reported death in a home invasion, and they probably would have thought, "Where's Dad?" So I'm grieving over that, how they're going to be devastated when they find out I'm dead because we're very, 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 very close. Okay, and so I start asking questions in my mind, and then I realize that I got to be careful what I think because every time I thought something, I was speaking out loud. I go, this is not cool. Be careful what I'm thinking. So I asked a question: if I'm dead and I'm here, is it impossible to go back? And the voice spoke to me. It was a man's voice, and it was kind of like a when you chide somebody, a little humor like that. To this day, I think it was my first cousin John that I was talking to, a soul part of my soul family from way back when. But this young man died at age 31. I was 32. The reason we were so close, like brothers, is because we had the same exact birthday. So every year he would call me and I would call him. We didn't know who was going to call each other first, but it was an ongoing joke. And whenever my mom and dad went to play pinochle at his mom and dad's house, my aunt was my mom's sister. Well, we were playing cribbage, me and him and my younger brother and his older brother, and the jokes and the banter. This is what I heard. It actually sounded like his voice, and he's joking around with me. And this is a serious subject. I'm in grief, and he's making jokes. So I thought to myself, I thought, well, maybe I can go back. So I started asking questions. I was like a young lawyer, okay, asking questions as if, okay, if I'm here, what about this and this? Because I know I'm supposed to have two more children. How am I going to have two more children if I'm here? And I can't tell you what he said. Okay, but I got a confirmation that that was going to happen. So I got a little motivated. So I asked another question. Well, what about these humanitarian projects and the things that I want to do to help other people? Because I got some ideas that will help millions of people. And so I asked these questions, and I'm getting confirmation. So I'm thinking, well, part of me did not want to come back, Lori. Part of me is fighting to stay right there and go exploring. I was making jokes to myself. Remember that part in the movie where Neo says, or Morpheus says to Neo, "You think that's air you're breathing?" I'm asking questions. Is this air I'm breathing? I wonder. I'm playing movie roles and lines in a movie because it's just super bizarre. You know, you can't describe it. And so I don't know if I was breathing air or not. I don't think we need to breathe air on the other side. I think you can. I think you eat if you want to, and breathe if you want to, and swim underwater if you want to, and do anything else you want to, because you have no limitations. But I was dead in time here, 15 minutes. I went outside at 8:32 p.m. Okay, I know what time my attackers left. So I put all this together. I know I was dead for 15 minutes, but while I was in paradise, okay, I literally thought I was there for hours and hours and hours, just having a grand old time. So at a certain point in time, I was overwhelmed in grief, and I said to myself, no, I can't stay. I'm not going to die today. I'm not going to die today, not like this. And I put my hand down. Okay. In fact, I said it in my mind first, and then I acted it out physically. I'm not going to die today, not like this, and I not like this. And when I put my finger down, I was gone from paradise. I was instantly back in my physical body beside the house, laying. It did rain that day. There was water, standing water and mud. My body is laying in the mud. Okay. And the first thing I did was take the biggest, longest, deep breath I could. I hadn't been breathing for 15 minutes. Okay. I know that I went outside at 8:32. They left at 9:45. They were here an hour and 15 minutes. And I could kept track of time from the 8:45 on. So instantly after I took that first breath, okay, the pain was off the chart. You cannot describe the pain that I felt. Someone had come up behind me when I was looking at the three cables that were cut and hit me on the here. You'll see there's a scar here. It's healed up really nice. There's a story. You know, I was really giving the surgeon a bad time. I shaved my head. You got to make it pretty, you know. So he put three times as many stitches as he was intended to put in, you know. And anyway, my head was wide open, completely wide open, and my heart's pumping now. I'm taking my second breath. After I took the first breath, I screamed so loud you could hear me for 10 miles. As I'm taking the second breath in, my hands shot up. I didn't have to think about it. It was a reflex. Both my hands are now holding my head. There's more soft, spongy material the size of a baseball outside than inside. I'm trying to literally push back the brain and tissue matter from inside my head. If it's out, I'm trying to push it back in. Now, I'm having a surreal moment. I'm not in panic, but I'm going into shock. I can just feel it, you know. And blood is coming out of my head, just like squirting through a garden hose. Within a minute, I was completely red. to the waist, and my whole left leg. Okay, because I was there. It's a surreal feeling to look at the water and the mud, and it's more red than brown. Okay, these three men, I saw three. There were seven, but I saw three. They were around me, and they had large flashlights. So the right at ground level, I could see very, very well. Okay, and as I screamed the first time, one of them jumped on top of my torso, put his legs on either side of me, grabs my collar. All right. I've already screamed once. I'm taking a breath. I'm holding my head, and he screams in my face. Now he's wearing a mask, eyes only. No eyes, nose, and mouth, just eyes. He's looking, we're 6 inches apart, and he screams as loud as he could in my face in Spanish. I'll translate for you. Oh my God, he's alive? Yeah, because I've been dead for 15 minutes. So now he's looking at a dead man come back to life. He's actually, I think he was more afraid of me than I was of him at that point, because his eyes were not dilated. They were the size of pins, okay? I screamed, and so he makes that comment. I'm holding my head, and I feel pressure. I feel pressure behind my left leg, just a few inches below my knee, right into my calf, into the below the knee, into the calf, okay? One of the other two attackers took his rifle. They all had rifles. They all had pistols. They were dressed in black and gray camouflage gear with bulletproof vests, leather gloves with the fingertips missing, and Army issue military boots. These were military police off duty, and they were the gang that night. And they had bad intelligence. They were there to rob us. This is a robbery, okay? They thought they're going to get rich. We're just sipping on tea and swimming in money. That's what me and my older friend was doing in the house. So um, this pressure, he took his rifle barrel and pushed the tip of the rifle barrel into my leg against the bone. He leaned into it with his body weight and fired off the first shot. That's the first round. There's another one coming, but he shot me in the leg. And I think the reason they did that is because I'm 6'2" and I'm bigger than 99% of all Latins. Very few Latin men are taller than 5'9", 5'10". I'm taller than everybody. So as a means to probably stop me from resisting or fighting, they shot me in the leg. That's what I think. Now, what did that feel like? It felt like somebody with a welding torch was inside my leg, because the fire in my leg was unbelievable. Was unbelievable. And so after they shot me, I don't know if it's the same man or the third. Now there are two guys on top of me interrogating me. How many people are in the house? And are there any weapons in the house? Don't lie. If you lie, I'm going to kill you. How many people are in the house? How many weapons are in the house? Don't lie or I'm going to kill you. Lori, this might have been stupid, but part of me, and I think it's my soul inside me, reacted to that. I wanted to grab him, but I was holding this wound, big head wound, and he's right in my face, and I screamed in him and his friend. I screamed as loud as I could. You already killed me once. Now, they could have just took a pistol and put it to my head and killed me again, but I didn't think that would happen. I don't know. I just had this knowing inside me that I was not allowed to come back, or chose to come back just to be killed again. That didn't make sense to me. And all this is happening in a fraction of a second. So when I screamed in his face, you already killed me once, they both stood up. No more interrogation. At that point, the two gentlemen, the one that, the first one that was holding me down and holding my shirt collar, he stayed with me. The other two ran to the front of the house and the back of the house. They entered the house at the same moment, and I heard boom, 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 7 more gunshots. They were using their pistols. The house is under siege. One guy in the front door, one guy in the back door. I don't know that they've not killed my friend. Okay, I have no idea. I'm laying in the mud just trying to stay conscious because I've lost a lot of blood. I'm dizzy like you can't believe. And I kept telling myself, don't go to sleep, don't go to sleep. It's so easy to just black out. Because I thought, well, this is a lot worse than a concussion. If I go to sleep, I probably never wake up. So I'm trying to stay awake and alert while this is happening. So they were in the house for over 45 minutes. Okay. And they're looking for money. They're looking for money and they didn't find anything. Now they roughed up my friend. They didn't kill him, but I didn't know that at that time. They came back out and all 3 of them now are on top of me. Where's the money? Where's the money? And I'm looking at him. I don't live here. I'm visiting my friend. Why would I know where there's any money? Don't hurt my friend. I told him, don't hurt my friend. Please don't hurt my friend. He's sick. He's weak. He needs his medication. Don't hurt my friend. You know, I'm pleading for the life of my friend, and I'm laying here in a lake of blood. And so um, at that moment, I felt pressure again. Now uh, these guys were mean and nasty on steroids. They're very bad guys. I don't know if it was the same guy or the third guy. He took his rifle. He's going to participate in this now, and the back of my calf, the same leg, thank God. Okay, he pushed the rifle barrel into my calf just a couple inches above my ankle as hard as he could, even though my leg was swollen and traumatized and I couldn't, it wasn't painful, but I could feel that pressure. Boom, he fired off the second round. They didn't do that to kill me, Lori. They did that to just cripple that left leg so I would never walk again. Remember, I said that. Remember what I'm saying, because for the next half hour or so, I'll get into it. But I was thinking, oh my God, how many surgeries, how many titanium rods? This has got to destroy all the bones in my left leg. I'll never walk normal again, is what I'm thinking. So after he shot me, then the last guy, he wanted to participate in the crime and feel like part of the gang. So he took his rifle. I'm laying on my left side in the mud. He takes his rifle, reverses it so the stock is here, the rifle stock, and he hit me back here as hard as he could. I felt nothing. My head was jolted from the blow, but I had no pain because I'm in trauma. I'm just straight trauma at this point. That was 6 more stitches on the back of my head. Now I watched them disappear into the blackness. So now I'm laying there. There's been 7, 8, 9 gunshots, 2 of them in my leg, and I can't bend my left leg. I can't bend it. It's just like a 2x6, okay, from the shock of being shot twice. And so I got up on my elbows and my right knee, my good leg, and I crawled to the wall. I drug myself to the wall through the mud, and I stood up, and I used the wall of the concrete house to go around to the back of the house. And then there's an embankment. I had to get down on my stomach again and crawl. I couldn't walk. I crawled up the embankment to get in the house. My friend Morris was on the kitchen floor in a fetal position. They had taken zip lines that police use in lieu of handcuffs, put them around his wrist and his ankles. When I saw that, I grabbed a knife out of the kitchen sink and I freed him, and I told him not to move. He wasn't speaking. He was, they'd thrown him on his head on the concrete floor. They had pistol whipped him on the back of his neck. That took several stitches to clean up the back of his neck. Beating an 80-year-old man with your pistol butts? Give me a break. These guys they're bad people. So I told, he could see the right side of my head. I did not want him to see this side. He does not know I've been shot. And I'm telling him, I'm going for help. I'll be back. I didn't want to leave my friend laying in that condition, hopeless. I wanted him to know that I'm going to go get help. I'm going to be right back. Somehow, some way, I'm going to get help. And so I said, don't move, because I don't know the injuries to his neck. His neck could have been broken. I didn't know. He says, take the truck. Take the truck. So I reached in his pocket. Oh, by the way, before they left, the bad guys, they went into my pockets and they got $50 cash and a $5 phone card. They were willing to kill us both for $55. That's the bottom line there. So I get his car keys to the truck. It's a 4x4 truck. I go out the front door, hobbling on one leg. I was running on pure adrenaline, but I got outside and it's 30 yards up the hill. It took me 150 steps hobbling. I fell down once and I could hardly stand back up, but I forced myself. The will to live, right? I got to the door, I opened the door, I'm in the truck. I used the steering wheel to pull my body in. My left leg is straight as a 2x4. It's a stick shift. I got a new problem. How am I going to shift? Well, I used one leg to start the car and go from neutral to first gear, and I never left first gear. I drive down the embankment to the driveway, and I go up the hill, which is a dead end. I went to the first house. I know the owner. I've waved at them when we're out riding horses. They know who I am. They know my first name anyway. And I'm holding on to the gates, screaming. There's lights on in the house. There's people in the house. The front door's open. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. They heard me. They turned the music off, shut the door, and turned off the lights and ignored me. Oh, so I've struggled to get back in the truck. I drive straight across the asphalt road into another yard to get out and knock on the door and ask if somebody could please drive this truck and take me and my friend to the hospital. And then I saw headlights behind me. 3 men in a truck behind me, headlights on me. I waved my arms and said, please, in Spanish. I've been down here almost 30 years. My Spanish is fluent. Come and drive the truck. I got to get to the hospital. We got to take my friend. These guys backed up, turned the lights off, and drove away from me. That's twice. Now, I probably looked like a zombie apocalypse in those headlights with all the blood on me. But then I got back in the truck for the third time, and I drove down the hill. I wasn't going to stop again. I'm driving on a narrow asphalt road with a ditch on each side, thinking if I go in the ditch, I'm not going to help anybody. So I drove all the way in first gear. Normally, it's a 15-minute drive to town, to the first pueblo, okay? It took me over an hour to get there because I'm going first gear and I'm woozy. I'm dizzy. My one eye is swollen. Thank God when they hit me, it did not hit my eye socket or my jaw or my teeth. That would have been complete destruction of this left side of my face. Fortunately, it was just my skull that received the what they call blunt force trauma. And when I was in heaven, when I was in paradise, the reason I didn't know how I died, Lori, I had no memory. I had no memory of being struck because there was no pain. I was killed instantly. I had no memory of falling. I had no memory of landing on the ground. I didn't know until I came back to my body. I got to the municipality, a big water company. There's lights and they're open 24/7. So I pull up parallel to the front gate and I get out of the truck for the third time. I get to the gate. I'm yelling for help. Two security guards have already left the guard house, okay, a little hut that they live in, and they're running towards the front gate, and they've got their pistols already drawn and holding them in their hands, running towards me. And when they got to where I was and they could see what I looked like a war victim, okay, they asked me what happened, and I told them, we've been attacked. One of you guys has to drive this truck. We've got to go back up that mountain and get my friend. He needs to go to the hospital. I was more concerned about him than I was about me, okay? And so the two of them carried me and put me in the passenger side of this truck and drove back fast. 10 minutes we were there. He raced. And then he carried, Morris doesn't even weigh 100 pounds. They put him in the back of the back seat and drove us to the clinic. And when we got there, they put me on a gurney, got me in a room, started stitching me up. I was making jokes with the doctor, do a good job. I don't want scars. I shaved my head. So after they stitched me up and Morris got a couple stitches, he wore a neck brace from that for about 3 months from the injuries to his neck. They took x-rays of my leg. So we get to the hospital. I'm met by what we would call there FBI agents. Here they're the OIJ, OIJOTA, and a plainclothes policeman, detectives, surgeons, doctors. They know they got a gunshot victim. They take me in a room to prep me. They don't know what's going on, but they had to cut my clothes off. Now, as they cut my clothes off, okay, for the first time, I could see my leg. And there's no exit wound. There is no exit wound. And I thought, wow, I could move my foot a little bit. I could wiggle my toes. That's a good sign. Maybe the damage isn't as bad as I'm thinking, But there's two doctors off my right shoulder. And I do not know how much blood I lost. I'm not even going to guess, but it was a lot. They're checking my vitals, and they can't believe it, okay? And they put a 40-pound cast on my leg. So they get me cleaned up. By this time, it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I didn't go to sleep till 5 o'clock. Later that same afternoon, the first day I was in the hospital, the doctor that attended me in the emergency prep room, okay, when he decided, no, just put a cast on and we'll deal with that later. And he said, Robert, how are you doing? He comes to my bedside. And I said, I'm fine. I remember you. And he says, hey, how are you feeling? Because we can't believe you're alive. He was telling me in the afternoon, if we gave you injections of pure adrenaline, you could not do what you did. You should be dead. And you know what I said to him? I think it was my soul speaking. I just looked at him and I said, well, doctor, what could possibly be stronger, have more force behind it than the will to live? He looked at me and he said, I think you're right. And I said, no, I'm not right. I'm absolutely wrong. The strongest force in the universe is not the human will to live. It's your soul's will to love. And the other doctor looked at him and patted him on the back and said, he's got a point. He's got a point. And then they left. I said, okay. And so I'm laying there on my side. I've got an IV unit, painkillers, and saline solution. And when I discovered the painkillers, I said, disconnect that. If I got pain, I want to feel it. I don't want any drugs. You can leave the antibiotics because I know I got 2 bullets on my leg and I don't want to lose a leg because of some lead poisoning or something like that. So I said, and they looked at me like I was a fruitcake. Why would you get off the medication? Aren't you in any pain? I go, if I got any pain, I want to feel it. I want to know what's going on in my body. Now, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and this is where it gets interesting. I look across this sea of gurneys, and there's a double door that goes outside. It's a special sidewalk. Only doctors come in. They have like 3 entrances into this big emergency salon. That's the one from outside. The door opens, and a man walks in. I swear he almost had to duck. He was so tall. I'm 6 feet 2 inches tall. This guy has got to be 6'10", if he's anything. 6'10", slender. He's got a stethoscope around his neck. He's wearing a white shirt and gray slacks, and he walks through all of these gurneys straight to my bedside. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a very handsome man. It looked like he just walked off the cover of GQ magazine. And he smiled, I'm thinking, I want teeth like that. This guy's got perfect teeth. And then he speaks to me in perfect English. Now, if he was a Panamanian or a Latin from another country, I have no way of knowing that. He looks like a doctor, and he smiles, and he says, "Good morning, Robert." I've never met this man. He didn't go to the end of my bed and look at a clipboard and see my name and schedule a number. And there's no other information on that clipboard because they didn't want a gossip mill in the hospital from a gunshot victim. They didn't want me to become like a celebrity of sorts because everybody want to come and hear the story, that kind of thing. So he starts talking to me, and he says, "How you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm doing okay right now, but last night was ugly." He goes, "Do you want to tell me about it?" I don't know why he asked me that. He probably maybe just wanted to verify I'm the guy he's supposed to be talking to, because I don't know if this man was an angelic being from the other side or someone here with ears to hear, one or the other. But he's talking to me, and I tell him the 2-minute version of how I got here. You can see the stitches on my head. And I told him, he's looking at the cast, and I go, "Yeah, there's 2 bullets on my leg." And so we're talking, and he says, "That's terrible." He goes, but then he put his arm on my shoulder, and he says, "Creig," or Robert, my first name's Robert. He says, "Robert, don't worry. Everything is going to be okay. I promise, everything's going to be okay." And I looked at him, and I said, "Are you my doctor?" And he looks at me, and he smiles, almost like a chuckle, and he says, he said in English, perfect English, he says, "More or less, more or less." Who says that? So he's chuckling as he says "more or less," and I'm looking at him like he's playing games with me or what. So then he kneels down on. Remember, he's 6 feet 10 inches tall. He kneels down on one leg, one knee, and he puts his arm around I'm laying on my left side, around my shoulder, and he's up close where nobody can hear what he's saying. Very personal. And he said, "Now look, before they take you to the second floor and look at your leg and decide how they're going to do therapy," he says, "if somebody asks you if you've been tested, simply tell them Dr. Castillo took care of that. He took care of everything." So I look at him again, and eye to eye, and I said, "Are you Dr. Castillo?" And he smiled again, and he looks at me and he says, "More or less." Just like that. And I'm thinking, what's going on with the more or less lines, So we shook hands, and he left. He walked out the same door he came in. About an hour later, I called this nurse, one of the senior nurses over, and I said, "Hey, where did Dr. Castillo go? You know, the tall, really tall, super tall doctor? Where did he go? Is he coming back?" And the nurse said, "Who? I don't know any Dr. Castillo. Who are you talking about?" Really? So then that prompted me to ask the guy in the bed right next to me. He must have seen the guy, 6 feet 10 inches tall, standing there talking to me. And he looks at me and he says, "No, I didn't see anybody." The next day, a group of doctors walked by, and the senior doctor looked at me and said, "Good morning, Robert. How are you today?" "Fine, good." She went and looked at my clipboard to verify, "Yeah, this is Robert Morris." And then she looked at her notes, and she had said, "Good morning, Robert." And so this is Robert Morris. And let's see. Oh, yeah. And he's been tested. And so I, to this day, think that I had a special visitor from the other side. Now, now the cast that they put on my leg, the third day I was there, they have doctors in these hospitals in Latin America. I don't know if they do this in the States, but they call them runners. This is a doctor. He's got his stethoscope, he's got a backpack, he's wearing tennis shoes, and he runs from room to room to patient. He's got a list of names. That's his assignment for the day. He just goes patient to patient to patient. My name came up. He shows up in the emergency salon, finds me, checks my dressing on my stitches on my head, checks my vitals, and he had heard something from one of the other emergency doctors. They knew that I came in as a victim of a crime scene. And he said, "Robert, have you seen the x-rays for your leg?" Evidently, the hospital's been talking about it, but I didn't know it. And I said, no, I didn't. I haven't seen him at all. Have you? He goes, yeah, I got him right here on my phone. I go, let me see, let me see. So he shows me the x-ray. So he shows me the pictures. Listen, they put a rifle barrel against my calf below my knee and pressed as hard as he could against the bone and fired off a round. 45 minutes later, they did the same thing just above my ankle. It's in a straight line, 10 inches apart. The entry wounds. There were no exit wounds for 6 months. I would wash my leg and scratch my leg, and I'd scratch off metallic pebbles in the size of grains of sand. And it was coming through my skin. My body was expulsing the bullet fragments, the small ones, like very small, very, very small. But there's 4 big pieces in my leg to this day. And I do set off metal detectors. I went to a hotel and cut the cast off and threw it away. And I never went back to the hospital. Within 3 days, I was walking. I could bend my knee. Within a week, I was running. I could run and jump, play basketball. And that in itself is a miracle right there. I like to think, because people have asked me, how's that possible? I wasn't going to say this to the doctors. I'm sharing this with you. I was so wired at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's why I couldn't sleep for 4 more hours. I was reliving paradise. And I was getting downloads. I was reliving conversations and what I saw and what I experienced and flying and all this. And how else could I have survived except I brought energy back from the other side?
Before we get into the downloads, I want to ask you questions about the near-death experience part.
Go ahead.
So the first thing that is so interesting is how you had the ability to let the thought direct you in ways that were not human. Your ability to focus your attention, to see the totality of the tree, to see the bark of the tree and all of the cells of the leaves in the tree. What did you learn about thought from being in that place that you've brought back into the life experience?
Well, okay, I can answer that. Here, I think I mentioned this earlier. This is like slower than mud. We're in a 3D world. It's very, very slow. We're literally prisoners of time, distance, and space. When that veil of constraints falls away, and you have all of your senses, 10,000 times more active, more alert, more your vision, your everything. When I looked at the tree and studied it, because I'm very curious about my surroundings, even the clothes I was wearing. I noticed there was no seams, no threads, no nothing. I'm looking at this tree, and if I could, let's look a little further. I just did that out of curiosity. Here, to answer your question, I'll answer it this way. I felt like I just knew everything, and it was in me. I didn't have to think. It was instantaneous. It was just instant. I was learning what it's like to be on the other side. I already know what it's like to be here, and now that I've been there and back, I prefer to be there. There's some abilities that I didn't know I had. It's almost like an intuitiveness. I've always had a certain level of discernment. I was very active as a young Christian man, 15 years, full gospel businessman, all the stuff, playing my guitar on the street, doing all kinds of stuff. I was called a zealot. I entered on the right hand of fellowship. I left at age 40 on the left foot of fellowship, and because I asked too many questions, and they didn't want to talk about the questions. They made the people in the religious circles feel very uncomfortable, especially when I show them the scripture and go, well, this is an obvious question. Help me understand this. And they couldn't do it. They were glad when I left. But anyway, I love God with all my heart. I've always said that. But I haven't been involved in a church religious organization since 40, and I'm going to be 70 in October. And so I have known since I was 23. There were some other things we don't have time to get into. I knew at 23 I was never going to die. It came through meditation and prayer, but I just knew that I wasn't ever going to die. And so how could I better answer your question? There was a knowing there that I could do things that I couldn't do here. And it's not that I tried it or assumed that I might or just tested it. No, I just knew that I could. There's a scripture that says we'll have the eyes of an eagle. Maybe that popped into my head. I don't know. But I literally felt like Superman for a while. For the few hours that it felt like I was there. The only regret I have is not trying to get a definite answer out of the man, the person I was talking to, because I think that was my cousin John. I really do.
Yeah, it sounded like it was. What
I,
about the thoughts, though, that like you're having these thoughts now and you see the power of the thoughts on the other side? Did that
yeah.
change how your thoughts affected your life going forward after that experience?
Well, I've always believed that anything was possible. Okay, we say that, with in faith, all things are possible. We learned that in as a young Christian man, right? Um, but things don't always happen instantly. But on the other side, a thought is instant. You can't measure it. It's there's no time, no distance, no space, and everything is happening at the same time. When I had the thought to go to the river, oh, I wish that I got to that creek. It was a mountain creek. I really wanted to see my reflection in the water, but I didn't go there because I had this burden of grief for my love of my kids. So the thoughts, I think I said this earlier. I felt as if I just went back home. That's where life is. That's where home was. This, this is a video game. I don't know what else to say it. This is a video game. You can reach up at any time and push pause and go back home, and then come back and push pause and continue with your human experience. And I've been pursuing for a few months now a controlled out of body state. I've gotten close. I've gotten so close.
Well,
Some of
let's
the things.
talk about the video game thing because this is really interesting. And I love that you're saying this. This isn't the first time I've heard about it. But what you're reminding me of is your experience with the grass and
Uh-huh.
the realness of that compared. So, can you compare the life force that you felt in the grass and the realness to what you're calling the earth experience as like a video game with the grass that we would have here to help
Yeah,
people
yeah.
who haven't had your experience understand the differences between the earth and the other side?
The everything on the other side is alive. It just feels alive. You sense it. There's life in everything, even the rocks. Okay, the flowers, the grass. If you walk on the grass here, you make an imprint. You walk on grass there, I made an imprint, but it popped right back, and it didn't feel like the grass here. It felt alive, and that life force that was, I could feel it coming up through my feet. That's what I felt in the floorboards of my car that same day that the car stopped and moved at 90-degree angles 2 times so that 7 people didn't die or 6 people didn't die in those 2 cars. Um, it's thoughts, it's knowing. It's hard to describe the feeling because when we touch something here, we're really not even touching it. We're really not even touching it. We don't have to get into that physics, do we? You're not really touching the ground. You're not really. There's a space between you. But there, it's like you absorb the life of everything as you see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, walk on it. When I was flying, that's the only time I've ever flown. Now, I have had some interesting experiences trying to attain that controlled out of body state. I've had some things happen in visions, and oh my God, there's been a half a dozen lucid dreams that the dream was so good, I didn't want to leave the dream. That was stupid. I could have left, but I didn't do it because the dream was so good. I want to see that dragon again. I just really want to see the dragon again. That's all I'll say. But I did see him, but I wasn't out of my body. But I did see him, and we had a conversation. I could say that. So there's been some things happen since 2022 on this side of that experience, and um, everything is alive, and you know it in the moment that you're having a thought. I think from what I've gathered, listening to other people that have a lot of experience on the other side, maybe you could help with this. Well, we might not. We go to the other side near death or controlled, or however we got there, or a deep state of meditation. People do it that way too. Um, and we don't remember everything that in that time immediately. It might take some time. I knew that I had some abilities, I think, before I went there, and that might have been why I focused so much on the tree. but I was all my curiosity had already been piqued because I'd been walking on the grass and that blew me away. And this tunic that I was wearing, you know, was just insane. It's like somebody painted it on me, and it was so comfortable. I wish I had one today. You know, I'd wear it all the time. It was wonderful. But another thing, as I'm looking at and taking in a panoramic view in front of me, I could also see behind me. I could also see behind me. I don't know how, but I could sense it. And if I could sense it, I could see it. If I could sense it and I can see it, I could know it. I could measure it. I could do something. I felt like Superman in 360 degrees, literally. I
That's
literally
so
did.
cool. I've heard others say that too.
Okay, I haven't heard. I haven't. You're the first person that's confirmed that. I remember
It's
asking.
interesting, Craig. Usually that is said when somebody goes to a place that they call the void. They almost
Mhm.
always describe their vision as being 360 degrees in the void, but you had it in what was like the human, earthly realm of the heavenly scape, which was really cool.
I don't know which realm I was in, but I was in my soul body, or some people call it our energy body. I know that it's life. I know that it's powerful and it's very physical. I mean, I was checking out my arms and my legs, counting my toes when I crossed my legs and sat on that grass and then touched the grass with my hands. Same sensation as coming through my feet. It just all felt alive. I was part of a living personal paradise, I like to think of it. And I
Wow.
think maybe I did not see somebody there because I might not have come back. I'm sure I was meant to come back. I'm
Yeah,
positive.
it definitely sounds like you were meant to come back. Well, the other
And
thing is you got downloads then to share with people too. So do you mind sharing some of the downloads that you got after you came back?
well, in I was, and I don't know that this wasn't my cousin John. He's part of my soul family, and so I can remember praying one night and agonizing over some stuff, and it was this is interesting. I There was an event that was I had concerns about. Okay, and so part of what I was praying for to get an answer was okay. Well, I'll just say it. If that woman that I was seeing at this time, if she's not the one, as I really believed that she was, then what about my children? These two kids that you've promised me, two girls, twins. That's going to happen. And I got an answer immediately and said, your children are fine. They're with me. Think about that for a minute. I get a download through prayer and meditation about two future kids, and I'm still not married, but we're close. You're getting closer. Now, here's another thing happened. I was grieving about this. That made me feel good to hear that answer. And I went to sleep at 12 o'clock at night. I had actually written a letter to break up with somebody. Okay. And I was crying about that. I was grieving about it. But then I was praying about, well, what about these kids? Oh, their kids are fine. They're with me. So, I got this little confusing moment. So I go to sleep at 12 o'clock. I wake up. I wake up. I'm wide awake. I do my thing in the bathroom. I shave. I get dressed. It's dark outside. What's going on? And I look outside. It's pitch black. At that point, I picked up my cell phone. I realized it's 12:20 a.m. I thought I'd slept for 6, 7 hours. No, I was asleep for 20 minutes, but I felt like I was asleep for 7 hours. And so that was like, a download from the other side, I believe, to put my heart at peace. And, we're still an item. It's been 2 years, almost 2.5 years. I've met the family now. She'll be my future wife. There's not a doubt in my mind. Okay.
So do you think you're
And
still going to have those kids?
absolutely. Listen, I may be 69, but I'm going on 35. I don't hang around with anybody my own age. They're all old and they can't walk. You don't get old because of age. You get old of years. You get old because you're weak. And I just don't feel a day over 35.
So, Craig, I'm curious. Sometimes when people have these experiences, they have abilities that they didn't have before the experience. And I know that you're working on these out of body where you're trying to leave the body and have these astral kind of travel experiences. But
Right.
beyond that, have you had any abilities that you didn't have before the near death experience?
Well, I've always been very discerning of spiritual things. So they call it, I've learned some new phrases: dimensional field, dimensional space. In prior, when I didn't know anything about kindergarten and not know anything, I'm thinking aura, electricity, something. No, I know quite a bit more about that now. That dimensional space, and there's a lot of energy there. There's a lot of information if you can tap into it. And it's almost as I've been in situations where I could almost read the person's mind because they were talking to me and I had heard what they were going to say before they said it. That has happened a number of times. It happened with my stepdaughter, who's 22 now. And she goes, how did you know that I was thinking that? He says, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Well, I think it's a confirmation of how powerful your thoughts were on the other side and bringing that back here and connecting.
I think so. I think you're
Yeah.
right about that. I know
Yeah.
this.
Well,
I'm supposed to waking people up, but the the two events of my life where I've been on the other side in part and been on the other side in in total, you know, in my soul. Um, it's not a day goes by I don't think about all of it. At any time, it's always present in my mind, prevalent. It's forefront in my mind. I wake up and I think, okay, it's another game. It's another day in the video game. Let's play because I know this is temporary. When I try to explain to people, your body it's as real as it's going to get, okay? But eventually, you will die. Eventually. So, is it is that all there is? Is that people start asking these questions when they get older, or they start asking questions when they have an experience like what I had. But I already knew some of these things were true before they killed me. Before they killed me, I had some knowledge there, and so that I think that made me a more alert on the other side, even more curious than I normally am. You know,
yeah, I'm
that
sure
that
it
that
makes sense. So
that
I
could
would
be good.
imagine, Craig, that there are people who are watching who would love to connect with you. Do you have a way that people can email you or connect with you?
Um, your viewers could contact me via email. You have my
Okay,
email. That's
sure.
fine.
Why don't you tell everybody what your email address is?
Splash, all lowercase, splash like splash in the water, splash 2169 at proton, proton.me.
Perfect.
M, M as in mom, E.
Okay.
Well, I always try to go through your transcripts and answer questions that people have.
Oh,
Haven't
like
answered.
in the comments section.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna ask everybody right now. So for people who are watching, what did you connect with most about Craig's experience? Was it his out of body where he had the encounter where he was driving and his car was miraculously moved and he had that energy experience? Was it his near-death experience where he was on the other side and in the heavenly realm and seeing things with 360-degree view? I'm curious. And then if you have questions for Craig, you can put them in the comments and he's going to come back and answer them. So I love that about this.
I know two questions right now before I
Okay.
forget. Okay, I know there's going to be people ask it, so I'm going to say it
Okay,
before
go
we.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, people wanted to know, did they catch the bad guys? No, no,
Oh,
that
yeah, that
didn't
is a
happen.
good question. Yes.
There was three that I saw. There was two more full soldiers in full combat gear on the street, and two more in two getaway cars 300 yards away at the end of the street where the asphalt was. There were seven. They thought they were going to get rich that night. They got $50 out of my pocket. That's it. So they never caught the bad guys. I mean, all I could see was their eyes and hear their voice. They didn't even have any
Right.
defining, no teeth, no mustache, no. They did that on purpose to conceal themselves.
I'm sure.
Okay, the other question people are going to ask is, what happened to Morris? Morris wore a neck brace for 3 months. He actually passed away in 2025 in February.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But
But but
also happy for
he
him.
got, yes, he got almost, well, 2 3/4 years more of life past the night where we both basically were killed. But that was another question. Yeah, I don't think those are two that I know they're going to ask.
Oh, I love those too. I'm so glad you answered those. Well, I want to ask you one more question, Creig. At this point now, after all these experiences, what do you think you know for sure?
We're living in a video game. That's an absolute sure. This body that I'm in is an avatar. The real me isn't anything close to my personality, my ego, my identity, imagination, none of that. Okay.
Me too.
And yeah, you know that's true. I've learned a lot since pursuing a controlled out of body state because until last June, I didn't know what that was. I've been living under a rock for a lot of years and didn't ask questions. That's my fault, my bad. But I know that death is not something that we should fear. I don't want anybody to be sick, pain, disease, or have that kind of an experience. Okay, when we transition, I didn't transition. I died, but I didn't transition all the way, or I wouldn't have come back. But I
Right.
had a choice. I had a choice. I wasn't given a choice. I made the choice. That tells me that my soul is the ultimate authority.
Yeah,
My soul
absolutely.
is.
I agree. Yes.
And so I
Love
chose to
that.
come back, but I did it kind of in a sneaky kind of way, like a young lawyer asking leading questions and get answers about the future. Because if that wasn't going to happen, then I'm not going anywhere, and this is where I'm meant to stay. But I talked my way out of it, and then because I wanted to come back. I wanted to come back. I think that's why my cousin John was laughing at one point and joking about certain things because I think he found it humorous that I thought I was there permanent and that's it. But now I'm trying to work my way out of it by asking leading questions about the future.
I
You
love
know,
it. Oh, that's
I did.
wonderful.
I've had many dreams, some lucid dreams, even where I was back in paradise in the same valley walking and I didn't go back to the river, but I briefly, I would be in that place again and kind of relive it.
Hmm.
I think that's a kind of a natural thing for a near death experiencer. If you want to, you could go back to where you were. Most people are not practicing a controlled out of body state, but I am, and I know I'm going to get there. And,
I
and and
love
you'll be one
that.
of the first. You'll be one of the first people I've watched a couple of your interviews too. You'll be one of the first people I send a courtesy email to, and maybe we'll get back together.
I love
Talk,
that. Oh,
we'll
that's
talk.
so great.
We'll talk about my pet dragon.
There we go. Well, Creig, I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for your enthusiasm. I want to thank you for your vulnerability and your curiosity. And thank you for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
You're right. Right. I don't see a mass awakening, but it's. I think it's started, and it's growing. I think it's growing, but so many people are still walking around and are clueless. It just blows me away.
Well,
What
thank
we
you
can
so
do is
much. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these beautiful experiences with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesdays live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This channel's for seekers, for hearts who remember there's something more. Subscribe to join the awakening.